Hey everyone. All right, let me get the link shared out here. And we'll get started. Got to share this in the Discord and on Twitter. Starting a little early, just to cover some things before, as price kind of approaches some interesting ideas. I want to cover some higher time frame ideas first. Hello, hello. All right. Yeah, let's give people a few minutes to get in here. Hope everyone's doing well. I did just finish a live stream, a members live stream. And so for the members that were in that live stream, I'll be covering some of the similar ideas that I covered in that because the recording deleted. So we'll take a look at that. But anyways, let's just get some context for Bitcoin locally. Threatening what could be a nice breakout into a pretty structuralist void on the chart. We do have some ideas to watch, and we're about to see a really messy chart appear. Just looking at a few things. And this is, we're going to tie this into some of the higher time frame stuff that I'm going to talk about in a second. But as we approach a breakout, there certainly are some ideas for local rejections and places where I might be interested in adding to my long, maybe even taking a head short. Let's get rid of this fib time here. And the idea would just be that we have the potential of just an SR flip. So push up, take some liquidity above the range, and have a quick rejection. And if we get that type of price action, let's go. What is the, oh, I think it's here. It might look something like this, where we have a breakout of this trend line, a quick rejection, and a trend line retest. We also could just break out and carry through this structuralist area of the chart. I want to talk a little bit about why I'd be interested in looking at something like this locally, because it all ties into why I'm, even though price is ranging here, and it's easy to start getting bearish, there's really no justification for getting bearish. There's nothing bearish about ranging, and I talked about this a bit in the Discord, but the idea is that ranges can make you bearish if you otherwise were bullish, even if you were just looking for longs, say down into a level like this, because your expectations of what price quote unquote should be doing are constantly being challenged. So we're just going to compare some of this price action to some previous ranges, and I'll even pull up a fractal. But let's look at order flow really quickly to get some reference there. Again, if you were in this members live stream, some of this is going to be repetitive, but I think it's important. All right, so we've been just seeing, as we're ranging, large bullish divergences form in price. Put in some initial lows, ranging. Yes, we chopped around here a lot, but just massive bullish divergences in the context of this price action to the tune of 120, 110 million negative delta of aggressive selling being absorbed. And we can compare that to some other prolonged ranges. We'll look at that on the trading view chart as well. But again, it's like here, at the time was getting long. We just had these massive bullish divergences forming, 140 million negative delta into this range, and even still aggressive selling into the move up. But it can start to feel like you can be bullish in here, but start to feel like, this doesn't look so bullish. We're just ranging, making new lows. But we're going to look at this on the trading view chart for context. And finally, just for the order flow context, this prolonged range that we spent 10 days in, 8 days in, depending on how you want to pull the range. Again, just massive bullish divergences forming, but very easy to get shaken out. And obviously, the bullish divergences are formed by the fact that people are aggressively selling into the range. So it's bullish because people are bearish and they're selling, and all that selling is getting absorbed over the course of days, right? And we know it's getting absorbed because although there's 123 million negative delta here, price is just ranging and making higher lows from this key idea. Same with here. All this aggressive selling, people are bearish, selling. Price is in fact just ranging and holding up very well into all this negative delta. And again, so we're going to come here and look. 124 million negative delta here. Yes, it can seem difficult to keep a bullish perspective here, but what is bearish about price pinging off some key levels, ranging, putting in a higher low into large bullish absorption as people get bearish and sell into this level. So let's just take a look at this on the trading view chart as well. And I do want to get over to live price action pretty quick here. But we can see here, let's go even to the 15-minute chart. This was a pretty prolonged range, and I'm identifying these ranges because, you know, since all-time highs, we actually haven't ranged at support for this long, besides here, and the comparable ranges would be something like this, right? So we put in the initial low, we get some nice reactions, but here, just a choppy, bearish idea, finally putting in a sweep of all these lows into what was the 618 of the move and start grinding up. Now, in hindsight, you could say, you know, it would be surprising to find that people were just selling into this whole move up. And you might say, why would you do that? That's so bullish. But it doesn't look bullish at the time when you're seeing price ranging, chopping around, taking these highs, this big rejection here, sweeping all this liquidity. Very easy to get shaken out of any high time frame bullish ideas, even if your trade entry never gets retested. And then the same thing here. So this is 8 days of ranging on the 15-minute chart. It's a range here, big bullish divergences forming, yet price chops around, retests the range lows. Even here, huge bullish divergences forming. And if you're looking at order flow, you might be thinking, well, if it's so bullish, then why isn't price going up? Well, the question that should be asked is, if there's so much selling, why isn't price going down? Who really cares in some sense if you have a range, if price is chopping around in the range and you have longs, let's say, from the range lows, and maybe you do want to start targeting a breakout of that range? It's psychologically difficult to stay bullish in those situations. But what's the excuse for not being bullish, right? When you just have key support holding up, price is chopping around ranging. Yes, people are selling. Price is chopping around, making higher lows. But what is bearish about this? Well, clearly there was nothing bearish about this. Doesn't mean price has to go up, but that's been my perspective, as some of the expectations of a quicker reversal can certainly be there, but is it bearish just because there wasn't and price is ranging? So in fact, I'm going to overlay, and we're going to get into some high time frame ideas as well. I might be interested in a local hedge short, but what I want to a little higher, I want to pull a fractal of this price action and put it over. Actually, I have it in here. So this is just that price action overlaid on this price action. It is not exact, but it's pretty darn close. Where you have this range, price puts in the pivot low, and then we come up, break out of the some descending structure. But what I want to point out is that on a lot of these rallies, we still have this, we have the grinding sort of impulsing structure. We have a lot of these retracements down into, this one was just a local one. Breakout, retest of the trend line. I mean, that's kind of happening on a few timelines, time frames here. And we have something similar here, kind of a local breakout, retest of the trend line, but we got 1, 2, 3. So anyways, that being said, is I wouldn't be so surprised to see something like this. Let me remove this bars pattern. And this would just be a local idea for me. Maybe we get some of this liquidity tapped to the upside. We have a reaction here, and maybe we don't. Maybe this will happen on the live stream, who knows? And then we have that quick move down, taking these lows into the middle of our range. So this would just be looking like a failed breakout of the range, the middle of our range, into our GP, take some local liquidity before continuation to the upside. So that's one thing I'll be looking at, and I might be looking for a tight invalidation add to my longs off of something like that. And even the potential of a head short here. That's one scenario locally I'm looking at as we grind up towards these highs. We can see already that if we call this a descending structure, we have broken out of it and gotten one little local retest. Structure certainly seems relevant. But we're coming off pretty major bullish absorption. And the other alternative is that we don't have a failed breakout here. And, well, there's no real structural resistance in this part of the chart. We have our horizontal resistance. We have some fibs. We certainly probably have some liquidity built up here as people have sold and shorted into this range. So you can imagine popping that liquidity and having a reaction. But we'll see what happens. If we hold this, I don't think there's anything unreasonable about just moving through these highs quite quickly. All right, so we're going to talk about some higher time frame ideas too, and what kind of the whole foundation of my current. Let's just get rid of these. My current plan is. Probably ignore some of these fib time structures. Just kind of looking at some different timing of these levels coming in if we do in fact get something like this. The idea would be that we are in potentially an expanded flat. And I think the idea is quite well supported by order flow because of how bullish it's been. It's quite comparable to this and this, where you'd look for, I think, a bigger move to the upside out of this range. That would come in around 77,000, 77,200. It's a bit of a region. And if this structure is valid and carries on to a C, we could be looking at something like a retracement to 50K. And I was just kind of looking at some trend lines here. Where would the trend line intersect with these lows, and maybe kind of looking at some different fib time ideas, just imagining what might make sense for a B, but we'll just see if a B comes in at all. In fact, I was just pulling this just to kind of get some frame of reference. But something like this doesn't look too bad to complete our wave 4, and then looking for new highs as a wave 5. So of course it's going to be quite hard to consider bearish ideas if price does in fact break out into all-time highs into this region of price. My preference would be, oh, by the way, this comes in around the first week of May. May the 4th be with you. So we can remember it that way. Come in taking these lows, just retracing this entire impulse. That would catch a lot of people off guard, I think. I'm open to more bullish ideas, but I'm going to be watching this level quite quickly. I mean, quite closely, or maybe quickly too. Obviously, it'd be great to get some kind of range up here with just local short triggers, something like this. Not so great if we impulse straight into the level and reject, a little harder to trade around. But we do still have some local resistance to get out of here. And although I wouldn't be surprised to see a reaction as we test it. Well, here's something as well. You don't have to short up here. I mean, if there's no clear triggers, nothing looks compelling, but might be a good idea to look at taking some profits off longs. I'm probably going to be looking for shorts up here, but hoping to get some clean triggers. It sure looks nice to come and take all of this. All right, let me just scroll through some of the comments here. I will say, I'll touch on this really quickly first. You know, it has been a little bit difficult just because, like I pointed this out earlier in the Discord. I mean, we just haven't had this. This is kind of a character change in the Bitcoin price action from this all-time high, where we're just ranging sideways. I just said, this was earlier, something I want to note for those who have found this range tedious. This is the most time Bitcoin has spent ranging sideways on a retracement to our lows since our all-time highs. It is, in fact, a bit of a character shift for Bitcoin price action in recent history. But, of course, it is not the first time Bitcoin has ranged sideways at support. My view is that although ranging can start feeling very bearish, and because your expectations are constantly challenged, there isn't anything particularly bearish about this. During today's live stream, I will compare some of the current PA to similar past PA on the Bitcoin chart. And, of course, the theme has just been bullish absorption, bullish absorption, bullish absorption as price ranges. And I made a little video earlier today looking for this kind of idea. But anyways, I just said 4-hour chart and CVD for perspective. This move certainly has the potential to get bullish. Let's see how it develops. And we can just see all this bullish absorption forming off these lows as we come into the key level. So, you know, as much as I would say that I would be open to price coming lower here, there's just no reason to be getting bearish in this range, in my view, until the range breaks down. It's really hard to justify getting bearish. So anyways, we're about to test the range highs, and we have some local resistance here. I'm kind of curious if we just rip it or if we see a rejection back below these highs. And that might be an interesting head short. So I wouldn't close my longs, but I might take a head short there. And I might be looking to add back or add to my longs on a retracement into these lows. And if if all of this happens where we intersect with that trend line, it has to happen quite quickly. It may not, but like if we go back to that bars pattern, you'd be looking for something like this is like a 15-minute wick down into this liquidity down here. So if it plays out anything like that, it would have to be quite a quick move, both to the upside and the downside, because the confluence there for the retest would actually be coming in and retesting this trend line as we sweep these lows with the middle of the channel in this. I mean, that's what makes the setup interesting to me, if we get a quick move back down to the downside. All right. I'll say this, I may be taking some trades on this live stream. If you are not an experienced trader and you're not trading ideas you don't understand, it's not going to go very well. I'm always using risk management. Oftentimes I'm not taking trades on live streams because it's not very often that prices happens to be somewhere that is interesting. But if that idea plays out, it probably will play out on this live stream just because of the fact that it has to happen quickly. But I'm also open to just breaking out here. All right, sorry. I'm going to read through some of the comments. Some things I don't really want to get into, but sorry, just reading through a few comments. All right, so there's kind of a couple related questions in here. Let me just read through all of them. There's not that many. Let's see if we can tie a few things together. All right. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just answer this one because it's quite simple. I'll answer it first. Somebody asked, what makes you think we will go to all-time high before the move down? I think generally I just explained it. It's a technical idea. It's one that I've actually considered from this high and seems to be playing out quite nicely. It's also a liquidity idea. It's an order flow idea. So I think order flow is in favor of a move up. It's in favor of a bigger move up. I think the technicals of price action are in favor of a bigger move up, but I don't know what's going to happen, right? I'm just going with what I think is higher probability. Some questions about it's just too much to get into. Like it's about essentially order flow and how perpetual contracts and futures contracts affect spot, or how spot affects. It's just there's so many dynamics to that. It's just not something I really want to get into on the live stream. In fact, what I'd like to do is actually just pay attention to current price action as we come up to some current or some important local levels. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. We don't need this New York Open indicator on the chart. We're aware that it's in 15 minutes. And I mean, there's a couple comments that are along the lines of they just think something else is different is going to happen. I can't actually even find those. And that's perfectly fine. I think you should certainly just trade around your own thesis. That makes sense to you. I don't know what's going to happen. I just think there's a reasonable case for this. Somebody's saying, I am long from 66.2K. Do you think a stop at 66K makes sense? Need to go out for 2 hours. Want to leave room to fill 1 hour min fair value gap above 66K and maybe a sweep of 66.125K. I don't know. I mean, right now it looks pretty good. Seems like a nice invalidation for a breakout, but I mean, if this happens, then you're going to get stopped out, which isn't the end of the world. But like you said, you have to be out for 2 hours. So, I mean, yeah, I don't really even have an answer to that question. Just, I mean, it really depends what happens here. we could just have a clean breakout, right? What has been very interesting to note is, to me, this just all looks so bullish. It looks so bullish. The chart looks bullish. The order flow looks bullish. Everything looks bullish. But can't help but notice that there really hasn't been. I even pointed this out earlier today on the members live stream when we were a little lower coming up into this impulse and uptrend. I think this range has worn a lot of people out because there is no aggressive longing coming in. I mean, it's like no one wants to long this, which is just kind of surprising. This is the kind of price action you would have thought, like the volume, the delta, it's like nothing. It's like almost dead. 74K, 72K, 3.6K, 600K. I mean, this is just nothing. The only big high volume delta candle we saw here was a short essentially getting stopped out for 7.2 million. Even here, as we keep grinding up to this breakout, there's just no one's longing this, which is, it's just interesting to see how the psychology of this range kind of plays out, which is that people obviously are just completely exhausted by this price action. They don't believe any rally is going to carry on, and obviously think lower's coming because they've just been selling into this. So I would expect that to change as we start breaking out here, but it's just hard to even call anything here as of now. Local like, look at this. There's just no evidence of anyone aggressively longing this, which is kind of what you want to see for a bigger move to the upside. Just some evidence that people are completely sidelined on this move. We've just been selling into this range and have no interest in getting long as price just goes higher and higher and higher. So what will be the big moment for Bitcoin here? Well, whatever happens here locally, and would be very open to this idea, although it would be happening a little quicker on the chart, ideally, or just a breakout, and we'll see. Be nice to see something really compelling for a potential hedge short up above. But we'll see. Well, you would just think people would be like, you'd see more, you could call it FOMO longs, call it whatever you want, just more aggressive longing into this, because like, how is no one really getting bullish yet? And especially after all the selling that's come into here. So, but that's kind of what happened here too. I mean, even after this started breaking out, it just was selling. Like nobody wanted to be long into the move. So, but I imagine we're about to blow up a ton of shorts taking these highs, and that should be evident in order flow. But still nothing really, no volume. I mean, if we start seeing like 30 million positive delta, 100 million volume in these 5-minute candles through these highs and the rejection back into the range, locally a little bearish. I mean, I'll say I'm going to have to put a lot of bias aside to take a head short even, just because it just all looks so bullish to me. Like I might have to just take it for the technical discipline of a big move up and rejection with high volume, high delta, rejection back into the range. I don't even really want to take the hedge, but I think it's kind of a nice idea to come up and retest this low and come and sweep these lows. But we'll see. There might not even be a short trigger, so I'm not going to take a short for no reason. Yeah, I think everything's pretty much, someone says ETH is looking good as well. I think everything is going to be looking good, at least locally, as Bitcoin continues to push higher. We have the New York Open in 10 minutes. Tons of people sidelined. Lots of shorts built up in here. Again, just selling. 120 million just on Bybit, BTC, USD perps, absorbed in this range. So aggressive selling as we come up to test these range highs. This could get quite volatile too. Big impulse, wicks, rejections. Let's take a look at order flow here. Still nothing too crazy as we take the highs, 2.5 million delta. Like just, so for example, like if somebody was wanting to, if I was interested in shorts, like a wick through those highs and then like tight invalidation, I just wouldn't short this because you're just, it's not that we can't react here. It's just not very compelling. 2.4 million positive delta, 9 million volume. It's not very compelling to be a major high or even a local high. But if we reject here, I mean, I'd be fine missing that short. But again, no real aggressive longs coming in here. People are clearly not that interested in longing Bitcoin. And we'll see if we get a bunch of positive delta, aggressive market longs, but coming in on a big decrease in open interest, which would indicate we might be seeing some shorts getting stopped out, which appear to be market longs, right? If you close your short, you have to cover it with a long. If your stop loss on your short or your liquidation gets hit, that appears as aggressive longs coming into the market. Price breaking those highs, still nothing too aggressive here in longing. Yeah, well, the trigger, I think, someone's asking, a member of the from the Discord, Brains is saying, when want to discuss the trigger you would be looking for a hedge short. Well, I'd like to see the big impulse on high volume, high positive delta, and the big reaction break down below the range. So beyond that, it's just a breakout. I mean, there's maybe some arguments for looking to trade around this level with invalidation up here. Just depends how things play out. I'll be honest, I'm not that interested in the short. I'm kind of hoping I just don't get a short trigger, because even this, it's just not like, it's kind of crazy actually that there's not more longs coming in on this entire move up, which more aggressive longing, which just goes to show that, I mean, people got so bearish in this range, just selling into it, that even as we just have a really bullish price action, there's not that much interest in longing it. So, and which means that probably a lot of people will be looking to short this. If they're not interested in longing it, and they're thinking that this price action is more likely to be a local fake out, then they might be more interested in shorting it, as which would also be potential fuel for a move up. Okay, so Brain's saying, I'm not with you, I'm not getting the short trigger. Well, I'll say this. I mean, you've been in the Discord for a while, so you'll know the idea of a range and a swing failure of the highs, right? So price breaks the high and falls back into the range as a trigger. That's a setup I trade all the time. Oh. Okay, yeah. I misread that. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, I'm surprised you don't understand that trigger, but you're saying you're with me about not wanting to get the short trigger. Yeah. I was like, that's a setup that I explain quite often. But I mean, yeah, I'd like to fade it, but the only thing I don't like to ignore here is just the possibility of coming in and running all these lows into a retest of the trend line. But again, it's just, I'll probably need something pretty compelling to happen here to short. It's like prices just grinding straight up. Currently breaking out. Even if we start wicking around here a little bit, it's just the lack of volume in delta here where there's no major liquidity being tapped, even local liquidity being tapped. So why short this? Even if we reject, I wouldn't hindsight and say I should have shorted it. I mean, I'm just not gonna be shorting anything that I'm seeing here. Bear wick of death incoming. I don't know about that. Maybe we'll see. So far, pretty bullish. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see price chopping around here. I guess, maybe it's my bias, maybe it's my reading of order flow. It's just going to be not a short I'm going to take here, just because there's nothing. Let me go to, getting a reaction here. You for example, you could just say this is a technical sweep of the range high, and could just say it's a short trigger. But from an order flow perspective, it does not look very appealing, and so I'm gonna be happy to miss it. So let's just say, a major liquidity grab to the downside. Even here, 23 million volume, 16 million negative delta. A little more compelling than 2 million positive delta, 2.2, 1.1. Get something like 15, 20 million, especially because we know with pretty high degrees of certainty that somewhere up here there are a pile of stop losses, maybe up a little closer to these highs, short stops. So let's come up and run those short stops. And we know that just because of all the aggressive selling we've been seeing in this range, right? There's going to be a lot of short stops up here. Should produce a pretty high volume, high delta wick. Whether that comes now or not, or ever, we'll see. But that would be my thesis. Hey, you know what? It wouldn't be the first time that I've not taken a trade because I didn't think that the liquidity ideas looked very good there for a high to come in, and then there was a significant rejection. So, but again, I'm just explaining. I'm not predicting. I don't know what will happen that this short wouldn't work. It just is not compelling to me in any way as we just impulse into the highs, just because there's a little wick rejection here. If there was 30 million positive delta in that wick, super high volume, yeah, that might be a little more interesting. Someone says, is your current assumption still that after 75 to 77K, we get one more flush to 52 to 50K? To be honest, I didn't really get your reasoning for the flush. It's just technical. The reasoning is a technical reason. I mean, certainly you could make the argument it's a liquidity reason too, which is just, think of liquidity as wrecking people. So price pushes to new all-time high, 77K region. This region, say you just have a shit ton of longs opening up here. And how many people are A, going to get wrecked longing the top, but B, going to get wrecked longing the entire way down, targeting new highs. Bull trend, bull trend, bull trend. So just wrecked. No longs work. And maybe for 2 or 3 weeks straight, we just grind all the way down to 50K. And so it's not just about the liquidity a move like that would generate, but it's a technical idea. And there's a reason these technical, you could call them formations or patterns, form, and it's because the market's seeking liquidity, right? So these are highly these are liquidity producing patterns, and I don't think that I think the patterns arise kind of, you could say, naturally in a sense, because liquidity presents itself in similar ways, or builds up in similar ways, because people make similar decisions based off of their psychology and emotion. So here, for example, we're kind of in this local scenario where it's not a bad reaction at all, and you could even argue at this point the move is almost scalpable, 3.8%, but still not shorting. We can see here, you know, so we had a little bit of positive delta coming in at the highs, 2.4, 2.2, and some of that liquidity coming in here. But yeah, nothing too interesting happening here except just a choppy little reaction. We could actually even go look at some of these old kind of breakouts and rallies, which is, you know, as price took some of these local highs, we did have nice little local reactions out of them. Even this high, look at this, straight down through these lows. Ultimately, the trend was still bullish, and the bullish ideas remained intact, still having some nice technical reactions. But anyways, Charlotte's asking, do you plan to fully hold to mid/higher 70s or take TPs along the way? I'd like to just hold my base swing long all the way up through all-time highs. In fact, I would like to add to it, but probably some of the adds I'll be taking profits on with local targets along the way, because there's going to be a few ideas about maybe if we go there at all, how price could progress there. So there'll be lots of opportunities in theory to add to the long. And I'll probably even be looking to take some shorts. Like I may be taking a short today as hedges. So I don't touch the long, but I just, for example, like if you take a clean hedge short that actually works. So you have a long, you take a short, and you take profits on the short on a retracement, and maybe you add back to your longs. Well, you're kind of locking in the profits from the move by hedge shorting. So you're essentially flat in this case, in this scenario, with a long and a short, and then you pull off the short leg on a retracement and hold your entire long position, rather than closing your long position or partially closing it with a TP. You just hold your entire long position and use the hedge short ideas as potential TPs, allowing you to maintain your entire long. All right. Give me like 2 minutes and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So one thing I'll say is, I've talked about the idea of maybe we run up to this liquidity and we have that retracement, but we don't have to have that. It's just an idea, something I'd be looking out for. And we've of course seen price breakout of even descending structures. Like maybe even call this a breakout, right? Like this. And there's just no retracement. I mean, price doesn't come up and sweep the highs and come retest the trend line. Just goes straight up. And so in this case, again, although there is, I think, a strong technical resistance here where you would maybe expect some kind of reaction up above. The other idea I was thinking about would be not to tap that level now. But again, I just want to look for some kind of order flow consistency here and to front run it into this and then come and take it later, or tap it later and then put in the higher low. Some more volatile kind of move here, but again, we're going to find out pretty quickly if there's any reaction at all. And if you take a short off a reaction, for me, I never risk more than 1 to 2% of my trading account on a single position, but it's just a reaction. So price can react, it can break back into the range. Doesn't mean much lower is coming. We could react and then just impulse straight up. But of course, what might surprise many people is there's actually no way to know what price is going to do in any given moment. So in the moment you take a trade, price is at the level that you entered the moment you take it, and it can either go up or down, and there's no way to know which way it's going to go. So you have invalidation, and you have risk management, and you're just playing a game of probabilities. Somebody's asking, I'll just answer the question broadly, how do you manage having multiple positions open? Say, for example, you have a bunch of Bitcoin positions open or whatever, and some of those might be taken on different time frames, right? So you could be in swing trades, you could be in scalps, you could be in, continuation trades. I think the best way to manage that is to, if you're going to open a swing trade, for example, at a high time frame level that your targets are a long ways away and probably won't be hit for many days or even weeks, just have a swing trade account. You can use sub accounts, you can use separate accounts depending on where you're trading. Take your swing trades on your swing account and then take your other trades on different accounts. So you're not looking at your swing positions every day thinking, oh, should I close this? Just letting that thesis play out can be a little easier. And I have heard in the Discord some members saying they kind of run into the problem when they're trading on one account, which is they're in a swing trade. It doesn't really matter what. Let's just say you're in a swing trade from these range lows, you're targeting 77K. But then they find themselves sitting here, maybe they're going to take a head short or they're going to take a scalp trade somewhere up here. And they take the head short, but then they think, I should just close the long, I'll add back to it on the retracement. And that thought enters their head, they close the long here, they take the head short, and then this happens, and they're just closed their swing long here. And their plan was to hold it way up to here because that idea of taking a short on a different time frame or a long on a different time frame or a scalp completely messes with their psychology of the. So I think it's better just to have your swing trades in a different account for most people. Let's do a quick order flow check here. Nothing happening. Again, just kind of surprising a little bit with this breakout. We see what we do see is some selling, right? It's nothing major. We see shorting coming in up at the highs here. So oftentimes what you'll find when you have, and maybe I'll show some examples of this, when you start to see some of the bigger reversals coming in at the highs, you'll see really aggressive longing, super high positive delta, and then that's the high and price rejects. When you start to see aggressive shorting, which is what we're seeing now at the highs of the range, I mean, to me, it's just a little more likely that price actually carries higher and wrecks those aggressive shorters. You want people to be bullish at the highs and get wrecked and become trapped liquidity. XRP with a really big move. But yeah, a lot of alts, I mean, if Bitcoin pumps, most alts are going to pump to varying degrees. Yeah, somebody said FTM approaching level of interest. The GP of the move, breaking out some descending structure here. I just post in the Discord. I'd be interested. I'm interested in a short if we can come up and sweep these highs a long ways away. That'd be a short trigger for me. Come up and take these. GP is just shorthand for the 618 of the move, 61.8% retracement. It's incredibly reactive. In fact, this is a GP from this high to this low on all time frames. So this would be a GP rejection. This would be a GP rejection. This would be a GP rejection. It's an incredibly reactive level. And in fact, on the high time frame, our low is the GP. High to low, 61.8. It's the golden pocket GP refers to. It's just a bit of a region of price. For example, this was the GP of the move before the impulse, and you'll find it on all time frames. Just a very reactive level. On all assets. I mean, this is the GP of the move. And in fact, you know, the FTM chart that got me called a clown when I posted it was this chart with a major. I did post it down around 77 cents, I think, and we did pump up into this level, but which is like another 50-60%, which is that this is actually, in my view, a more bearish corrective structure. I know price is impulsing, but it's the same way that it's actually the same, a very similar idea to the Bitcoin idea. It's just in reverse. But looking at this as a expanded flat potentially in here, it's just the structure's all different. But anyways, the major target up here is, well, the GP of the move on logarithmic. So, I mean, it's a very, very, very clean level. This low, I longed into this level. It's a little different on logarithmic, but again, just go back on the 4-hour chart, the 1-day chart, pull every single alt, pull Pepe before it went up thousands of percent, pull every alt and see where the low came in before the impulse. You'll find the vast majority of them came in at that level. No, I don't always use log. Like, what's the difference of using logarithmic or non-log? This is the price action. Make sense of this. I mean, to make sense of price action where price went up 60 zillion% and to get the scale of price, like pumping 7, 8, 9,000%, you really need to be looking at the logarithmic scale to make sense of any of this price action. Or it's just irrelevant. I mean, you can't even begin to decipher what is going on there. So on super high time frame, super parabolic price action, I would use the logarithmic chart. For local stuff, I wouldn't. And sometimes I actually accidentally end up toggled onto a logarithmic chart when I'm doing I've been doing higher time frame analysis and I forget to switch it, which is kind of annoying. But again, you know, we'll see if it was the right call or not, but this could be helpful for members who know that it's a setup I really like to trade, which is just identifying the range and shorting rejections of the range, highs and range lows. Like this, trading this range at the time. But again, not interested in shorting this as price just goes straight up through the range on massive bullish divergences. But just from an order flow perspective, this, oh, flip, forgot to change the chart. Back here when we were ranging between 53,000 and 50,000, there's nice shorts, there's nice longs, but looking for that clean reaction, but also looking for some reason to get short from an order flow perspective can be helpful in potentially fading some of those what look like on the chart pretty clean technical triggers, which I'm not saying we won't reject here. It's just it's kind of hard from a technical perspective not to justify taking that short, but it's just the volume here is just shockingly low for what price is doing. And it's just surprising there's not even more shorts right above these highs, which just maybe tells you that these shorts are trading with their liquidations and stops a little higher here. I would just expect price to keep working their way towards them. Kind of grindy, choppy, but yet locally bullish price action here. It's hard to call it anything else. All right, well, you know, I don't, someone's saying, how will you structure the short on the GP if you were to take it? It's going to be a tough one. Like, if you want to actually short the actual level, instead of waiting for a failed break, which is justifiable, not maybe so much from the structure of it, but like the risk reward of this gets pretty, your size would be really small, like 1.82R. It's not that compelling. Although there's always a chance the whole thesis is wrong and that head short ends up saving you for a much bigger move to the downside, because this actually is important resistance to break out on a higher time frame. Like a rejection here would be something to be a little cautious about for the more bullish ideas. But the reason the level could be a little hard to trade, other than just shorting it, if there's a high volume wick, to trade much better risk reward than waiting for the failed break, is if we just impulse straight into the level and reject, essentially you would just have to say, I'm shorting the level, I'm shorting any reaction, I'm shorting any high volume, high delta move into the level, and just looking for immediate continuation to the downside, like price reacts and just starts coming straight back down. And really what's your invalidation there? Well, it's just giving your trade a little bit of room to breathe above the level and just looking to manage it quickly and wanting really quick follow through on the trade. And if you don't get it, you just cut the position, and maybe there's a range that forms here, and you get a cleaner setup on that. But if price just impulses straight into the level with a quick move, I would just say this, like, it's kind of hard to explain because what people want is they want, like, where do I enter and where does my stop loss go? But with a move like that, it's really takes a lot of experience, right? To trade those types of quick wick moves into a level. And part of that experience is just to say, like, watching price action, watching volume, watching delta, taking the trade as soon as price starts reacting from the level with a predetermined invalidation, let's say, stop loss. And that's your sizing, right? So let's even say you want to size it like this, like it's a 4R-ish trade. Your stop loss is 0.8, 0.1% away. And that's about how you're going to size it. You might not even take a full stop. You might get the reaction. And as soon as price shows some strength, you might just close it at a partial if you don't get immediate follow through on your trade. And that's kind of how I would probably trade it if I was going to short the reaction. But there's not really a structured hard stop here on these super quick wicking moves that are coming into a retest, because you just have to short the level, right? It's different when price like runs a high. If there's an established high and price runs it, well, you have your reaction and you have your invalidation above the high. But when price is just coming straight into a level and you want to trade the level, you basically just have to be looking to, because like I'll just give an example here. Let's just say that you wanted, because this was a level on the chart at the time, you wanted to trade the touch of this trend line. Well, you have no structure. You just have a wick here. So you have no side structure over here to invalidate your trade. And you just wanted to trade the quick move down into the trend line. Give me 1 second. Well, let's come back to this level. I mean, all you can really do, in this case, actually, there was kind of a clean trigger because you could actually just long the reclaim of that and you got a retest of it. So on the 5-minute chart, you could have just waited for this level to be swept, even got the little retest there and longed it like that. But if prices just come straight into the level, well, you might just long the wick into the level, give the trade some room to breathe. If you get stopped out, you're protected, but just look for immediate continuation. So what we might get here, the alternative 2, I know there's a hotkey to snap back to price. I just didn't realize it was this far away. All right. The other possibility is that we form some of that local structure into this level and we get a nice sweep, and there could be a more local trigger with and just trade it as like a local sweep and rejection up here. Price still chopping around these local range highs. You could, I don't know. I mean, there's ways to justify like this, for example, just short the retest. Say you're like a limit order trader and you wanted to trade that level. I mean, this could be your TP1, but like this. Just use this as a secondary SR kind of idea. Basically expecting either this to hold, one of these two or three, or you're saying you're invalidated and price is claiming those levels and you're stopping out your short. Be another way to think about it. Someone asking, kind of interesting. I didn't actually notice this. This is actually a retest of this trend line. I mean, I don't think I have it pulled perfectly here. It's pretty close. But this was obviously, you know, if you follow my analysis from the move down from 73K, this trend line was an identified target for the move down. And it's kind of interesting. I actually had removed it from my chart. I didn't realize that we were actually moving under this. And now I just realized that somebody asked me earlier in the live stream, what about the trend line from 42K? And I didn't address it, and I didn't really, it's kind of hard to know what they're talking about. I'm just realizing that's the trend line they were talking about. Because you don't have a chart, right? So somebody just says, you know, what about the trend line from 36? And it's like, I don't know. I don't have it on my chart. But just realizing that's what he's talking about. So we are kind of breaking out of it. I know the POCs here. Said you can check the POC from, I mean, the POC of this whole range, that's where we wicked here. Trading above it right now. And maybe you're referencing the POC from this range up at these highs. Do I have any interesting IBIT data? IBIT data, that's the BlackRock ETF. We do have some aggressive longs coming in. Nothing major, but it's a little bit more aggressive than we're seeing on Bybit. We have also seen some selling into this price action. Definitely not as aggressive as Bybit again. But, well, I just threw off the scale of this chart. But certainly a little, not much more, but a little more relative interest here on the Bybit chart today in this move up for the aggressive longing. It's not major aggressive longing though. Nothing like we were seeing in here. But yeah, so, you know, for those of you that don't watch order flow very often, this might not seem very interesting, but for someone who does, just so surprising to see so little volume here in Delta in all these 5-minute candles. Because you would just expect some more aggressive longs to be coming in. I mean, and that's been true for this whole move up. I guess no one really sees this as bullish. Yes, I do have a reason for watching Bybit's chart instead of, and it's the BTC USD perp chart specifically. It's not a spot chart. But I just find I'll put it simply, I find the data more reliable. Yeah, I mean, part of me is considering just ending the live stream here in the next probably 10-15 minutes. We'll let the hour close and maybe the next 15-minute candle. And not sit and watch live price action too long. But again, coming off pretty large bullish absorption, anticipating tapping some major liquidity above. That's the most likely minimum case scenario, but it's even, I mean, it'd be hard to claim that, let's just get rid of this. It'd be hard to claim that even if there is high delta here, we get a nice reaction, I wouldn't be surprised to see a local reaction, that this order flow isn't going to play out to a much bigger move to the upside, even if we see some local retracements. Anything can happen, but I'm just saying what is the most reasonable interpretation of this in my view. But again, chopping around this local high, we'll see if people want to keep shorting it. We'll see if we reject. New 1 hour candle opening here. I'll say this too, there's not really any aggressive shorting coming in either. It's just slight. No aggressive longing, just some shorting, some selling, some longing. You know, maybe be interesting to see what happens if we come and run this low. And we may break it down, of course, but. And by interesting, I just mean from an order flow perspective. Just see what people want to do. People want to start aggressively selling into that breakdown. And sometimes what you see here in a case like this is that even the people who are long, like we could see a surprising amount of long stopped out on a local retracement that have just been trailing their stops, wanting to have some exposures for whatever longs have coming along the way, and where they all trail them quite closely, and then price runs all those stops. You see a big flush with negative delta as all those stops get taken. It could be a pretty minor retracement that causes something like that. I could point out some examples of a few things. So like, for example, the 5-minute candle high up here around 71,000. This is a nice, you know, shortable candle. 18.7 million positive delta, 38 million volume. That's quite nice versus like 1 or 2 million delta. And just as an order flow confluence, nothing actually that crazy here. 7.4 million, but it's not. Oh, here we had 20 million positive delta coming onto that candle, but it's not nothing. And right now we're just seeing nothing. So that's kind of what you want to see at the highs to look for shorts, in my view, just to give the position a little bit more. See aggressive logging, people getting super bullish up here, and then get wrecked. Or for lows, you'd want to see. This one actually go to what was a very surprising amount of negative delta here. So we're grinding up here, and I decided to get long into this range again because of bullish order flow. But I completely shifted my perspective when we ran these lows into this wick with 41 million negative delta in that wick, because I was actually looking for lower. As we were ranging, I was looking for a move down through these lows, and then I see this wick with 41 million negative delta. We wick back up, and so then I'm just getting back long in this range, and we continue to have bullish absorption. So a big high volume, high negative delta sweep and reclaim of some structure can be a nice long trigger. We kind of had that on a smaller time frame here, 16 million negative delta. And a big high volume, high delta, positive delta wick to the upside could be a nice idea for a short trigger. But just a completely irrelevant amount of volume happening here. So I'm saying the minor rejection now is clearly from the big trend line you just mentioned. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe people have that on their charts and they're selling into it, but it's also just the clear high on the 15-minute chart. I mean, expecting some kind of reaction here, as you could imagine a couple scenarios. Say people were really bullish, well then more aggressive longing up here. But if people are bearish and they were expecting a breakdown, and maybe they're even in shorts with their stop losses up here, but then they're surprised and price starts going higher and they think, oh yeah, we're not gonna break out here. And then this starts happening, and so even now they're not interested in longing because they're expecting price to break down. So no one's interested in longing, maybe some selling, some shorting. And you could imagine a reaction here that's minor, just based off of this minor high. But there's going to be a lot of people just based on order flow who are completely sidelined on this move, but not even just sidelined, that they're going to be short on it. And I would imagine to start seeing signs of them getting absolutely smoked as we push higher. But short from down here, right? Because like I said, I mean, it's very hard not to get bearish, even though price is just trading sideways on bullish absorption at support. So a lot of people had been getting bearish here. Someone says, just one question. If your thesis with 77K will play out, then it means we have to see bearish absorption close to 77K, or does it not have to happen? You don't necessarily have to have a bearish absorption. Well, you probably will. I mean, the idea would be it'd be a major liquidity target, but you might not get a range with bullet bearish absorption. So like, I'll give you a perfect wick where we spend about 15 seconds at the high as to demonstrate this. So this is when we made our this wick, we took the first all-time high. I did short that. I did not short this one. We spent about 15 seconds up here. Just super high volume. 7.8 million, 32, 10.9, 21 million. So you have super high volume in this wick, super high positive delta, and then you do have the big sell-off. But let's go look at this second all-time high we made. And so you're not necessarily... Wait, this isn't the second all-time high we made. This is. You're not necessarily getting bearish absorption in the sense of a range where there's a divergence between this candle and that candle. But what you are getting is... and this... Again, we spent 15 seconds up here. This is a negative delta candle, even though the vast majority of this was all positive delta. You're looking for, so just look at it like this. Let me get rid of open interest here for a second. 9 million market longs opening at this price. 7.5 million, 1 million, 7.6 million, 1.7 million. In this candle, tens and tens and tens of millions of market longs opening right at the highs, the all-time high. And price just isn't moving and just starts coming back down really quickly. That would be a bearish absorption. I mean, somebody just sat here with a limit sell order and absorbed all of this aggressive market buying pressure. And then the candle actually ends as a negative delta candle as the big rejection comes in and wipes out all this aggressive longing up into the level. So what I would expect to see is super, super high volume, super high positive delta, shorts getting smoked, which is positive delta, shorts getting stopped out, and longs opening, and price to just stop moving. All right, so we're getting a little bit more. Oh, I'm on the. Fuck, I was on the wrong screen. Ugh. Well, basically, I was just saying, but I was at the right place on the chart. There was just tons of longs opening, like tens of millions of longs opening right at the highs, and price just stops moving. So you know there's limit sellers. I'm not referring to this level. I'm just referring to where I was. So you see all that positive delta, high volume, 100 million volume candles coming in, and price stops moving and starts reversing. So that would be bearish absorption on like a big liquidity wick to the upside. So you might see some of that. You might not necessarily see a range form for 2 days with like super bearish divergences, but you probably should see some signs of massive liquidity being grabbed up at the 77K level. And it would just be a higher time frame version of this, which is the reason I'm not looking for this to be a major high is because there's no liquidity after this whole range. And so if we come to 77K, which again would be, I think it'd be almost impossible to see this happen. But if we come to 77K and we see this, no volume, no delta, no one's trading it, no shorts are getting stopped out, no one's longing it, I'd be less likely to think it's the high. But again, that'd be pretty hard to imagine being the case at those highs. Nice little local sweep there on Bitcoin. Just come in and take this low before another impulse. So even this, like 3.8 million, I mean, you're just expecting to see so much more here. So are getting the decrease in open interest, though, as some shorts are starting to get squeezed. But again, I would expect tens of millions of positive delta. We are coming up to that major level, which I would just like to see rip through in some sense, because everything just looks so bullish here. So my bias is not even to think about the hedge short, but I'll probably have to make a decision if I want to take it. But hoping order flow gives me some reason to do so and a reaction. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm not gonna go back. I see all the wrong screen comments. I'm not gonna go back to that because I think it's more interesting to pay attention to what's happening here. But you know what? I think I explained it okay, even if you couldn't see what I was looking at. Yeah, nothing too crazy happening here. You know, if you're just looking at the chart without maybe a little bit of order flow context, everything here seems like maybe a little more, if you're looking on the live time frames, seems like it's a little more relevant. Oh, big rejection, or oh, this big wick. But there's just no volume here. I mean, I would just say price is most likely just grinding towards liquidity. But we should start seeing a couple things. We should start seeing shorts getting stopped out, maybe some volatility, but people wanting to sell into and keep shorting this move would be quite nice from an order flow perspective. That'd be very bullish. It would be very similar to, we'll go there really quickly. here, where you have the big bullish divergences forming a ton of shorts and longs are opening, shorts getting squeezed up at the highs, like this 5-minute candle, 38 million delta, 10 million. So you see that big high volume, high delta initial squeeze, and then all these longs get wiped out. But then what happens as price continues to push higher? Actually pushing, this is an important part I'm missing here. All selling into the grinding breakout here. So just selling, 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 selling. You see this in the CBD. Increase in open interest, so some short risk coming in there. Finally, all these shorts are squeezed out. We get that initial wick reaction, which I might be looking for here. That's the potential short I'm interested in taking, this kind of setup, but seeing the short opportunity as after all this liquidity has been squeezed out. Similar to this, high volume, high delta, high volume, high delta. Get the big run to the downside, add to my longs on the quick wick through the lows, and then we just see still some signs of selling here, nothing as crazy as all of this. But that's why I reviewed at the start of the live stream. So if we get that high volume, tens of millions of positive delta up into this level, that'd be maybe an order flow reason for me to get short. Still using risk management and still carrying my swing long. So just review, I'm looking for higher from a technical perspective, also from an order flow perspective. I want to see all these shorts get crushed, and then maybe the quick move to the downside where I can look for an add to my longs. Always using risk management. Everything could just get annihilated here, and it's always possible that this happens. I take the short, maybe I do end up shorting the level, maybe I short here, I get stopped out, this happens, I take the long, get stopped out of that, get stopped out of my swing longs, and I just take a bunch of stop losses. I am just preparing you guys for the realities of trading, and that is why we use risk management. Anything is possible. But I think I have a pretty nice thesis anyways for potentially trading around this. And if we just rip through this, then I'm just carrying my longs. No shorts. Well, we have our first signs of some longs wanting to come in here. 3.6 million, some aggressive long risk, increase in open interest, 3.6 million positive delta. Nothing major, but might have thought you'd be seeing more of that on this entire move up. So people starting to probably notice that maybe this isn't so bearish. Price is breaking out. What we'd love to see for the short scenario is just a ton of longs start opening into this level as all those shorts get squeezed out. Price isn't moving into massive, massive positive delta. And then maybe that could be a local short trigger. We get the chance to add. What I'll be annoyed about probably is if we get the technical setup, like price comes up into this level and runs into these lows, but we never have anything compelling from a liquidity perspective in the order flow to take that short. Because I'll probably not take it in that case. Someone asking, do you find trading nowadays hard and exhausting for yourself after many years of experience, or is it just easy game for you? Because I struggle, this is the person saying this, hard sometimes, beating myself up because of mistakes, etc. You know, it's pretty rare that I'm going to beat myself up. I mean, I've had a couple instances where I just know I just misplayed And oftentimes it will be like when I have a plan and I don't stick to it, which is pretty rare. But I had a I did a live stream where I covered this. I won't go too far into it, but just the basic idea, where I just kind of felt I beat myself up a little bit, which was here. I had this long planned. Targeting this move, waited all day. Well, it was just, again, centered around some of this structure into the GP. Waited all day for the setup. It's actually a little tighter than that. But anyways, I talked about the plan all day in the Discord. I waited patiently, and it was all based off of all this other analysis. And so I take the long, and then something quite bearish happens here from an order flow perspective, or what I perceived as bearish. And it was actually something I hadn't seen before in the IBIT data to that extent. And so I actually took profits on this long way early. And I actually hedged short as well. And in the end, you could say, oh, it's not that big of a deal, because it's still overall a profitable idea. But it kind of was a big deal, because in hindsight, I'm sitting there thinking, how the hell did I manage to take profits on this trade when price just, my literal plan was to come in, waited all day for this setup, sweep all this local liquidity, fire off the long, and look for the really strong impulsive move through these highs. It's exactly what I got. We barely even got a minor retracement. And yet I managed to close a big chunk of that long and short this move. So, it's my hedge short was confined to a local region, but so I turned something that could have been probably an easy 8 or 9 R into like 3. But to answer your question, I'd say generally I find it easy, because, and easy as a caveat, because oftentimes I know exactly what I want to do. So I'm not coming to the charts every day saying, oh fuck, what, how the price is up here, man, I gotta get long. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, I'm thinking about, I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm, the best trader ever, but I'm thinking about everything. And I might even not, I can't share every single idea, but I'm thinking about so many scenarios, so many ideas and I'm just accepting that the chart is going to give me really clean setups. And at some point I'm going to need to, it's going to do that over and over and over again. It's okay if I miss trades. All I have to do is plan out well-structured, reasonable trades and execute them with risk management. And that's my only job. And if I can do that and I can feel good about the decisions I'm making, even if my trade doesn't work, I don't really get stressed out about it. And I don't find it particularly hard to find good setups. Like, some environments are more challenging than others. But the big part is just being patient, right? So, for example, I'd be more likely to beat myself up over having a well-defined plan, having thought about it for hours and hours and hours, reviewed a bunch of different scenarios, been patient, waiting for my execution, have the trade going exactly as I planned, and then maybe based off of something that I couldn't quite figure out how to interpret it any other way, changing my plan in this split moment. For me, it's not about, because somebody in the Discord, people were saying, don't beat yourself up. It's, I took that trade. It's still a winning trade, even though I took profits, even with the hedge short. This is like a really good, but it's not about whether it wins or loses. It's about the fact that I had a well-defined plan that I wanted to execute, and I just changed the plan based on some information that I really didn't have a good interpretation for, I suppose. So. Um, I'd say where the because this is following up on another question. Someone says you've often said you might do this for another year and stop. What's your goal? As in retire from trading, or will you just stop doing all the educational content? And so I would say that's probably that adds a much different dynamic to everything I do every day, because I'm having to go through all of my plans and explain them to people who don't have some of that history. And so I think just sort of it's really rewarding, and I'm really excited about like what the LATF community Discord has turned into. It's amazing. But I'd say that's kind of the harder element of trading at this point in terms of just the workload. Um, there's some aspects of it where it's just I'm doing what I'm doing anyways, and then I'm just talking about what I'm doing, which is sort of not too dissimilar from journaling. And even this, I could just say, I mean, I could just reframe this in my head as I'm doing a video journal. I'm explaining what my plan is. I'm explaining what my thoughts are, what I'm looking for, what I want to do, what would make me be interested in a short, what would make me be interested in a long, going through the logic of it. And that is, in fact, what a journal is. How I would take that trade, where I would invalidate it. So, but yeah, I probably won't do what I'm doing right now in the LATF stands for Lucky Apes Trading Floor. That's the members Discord. Been doing it for a few years. I probably can't see myself doing it forever, to the degree that I'm doing it, because I'm basically in there all day, every day. I would think I'd like to leave something really valuable behind, and all the live updates and all that stuff I think is almost irreplaceable, and from a value perspective, because it's again one thing for you to watch a video that I made 2 years ago about this concept. It's another thing to see those concepts demonstrated on a live chart every day. But I don't know. I don't know if I can do that forever. So, but I'm happy and excited about doing it right now. But I can just imagine a scenario where that element of it completely changes. So I said I would stay on here for another 15 minutes after the hourly close, and price is kind of breaking out right now. I will say that, something that, something that I would like to do is, or that I like to do rather, is I like to set alerts. I like to have a setup where I can respond to alerts, and maybe I'd come and check what order flow and price action looks like if I get my alerts. Oh, I was just setting alerts. But, doing a live stream is great. We can cover a bunch of things. But what I don't like doing is sitting on a live stream for hours and hours and hours on end waiting for a level. Like, that's such a waste of my time. It's a waste of everybody's time. Because it doesn't really matter what happens here to me. I know what I'm looking to happen, and it may or may not happen. And so I just like to come, and that's why, most of the updates in the Discord come when I get alerts or I'm evaluating the charts. But yeah. So I might just set some alerts and go do other things. That could be one of the benefits of being in some nice long positions here, being open to see how price reacts to some of these key levels. But I can just chill and don't have to sit and stare at the charts all day. What's the order flow like? We can take a look at that. there's nothing happening. I mean, I don't know if say nothing, but just no volume, no aggressive buying or selling really. Which I would just interpret as if price is pushing towards liquidity, especially after ranging for all this time with this much negative delta absorbed. I mean, it's just hard to say that it's tapped that major liquidity. You would think that all the shorts that are built up in this range are major targets for price. And yeah, I think with the first critical level being a retest of these lows, but price may just rip through them. Okay, well, let's just wrap it up, I think. About an hour into the New York Open, I think we covered a lot of things, but the end of these live streams can always just get so they just drag on, where it's like I'm kind of over sitting here watching live price action. I'd rather just come look when we get a move to the upside, or maybe come look if we start retesting these lows. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. This is my second live stream today, by the way. And, my day starts pretty early. I've been up for a long time already.